This is episode 290 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Dio Morales, and today I'm joined by Marcel. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path left to travel.
And that's where you'll find Waldo.
Manzano,
and by the
sorry.
way, anybody who understands that reference to why it's where you find Waldo, good on you.
Will is sick today, so will not be here. Hagewood. Ryan, learning that December is going to be a busy month for at least 18 more years. Staniszewski.
Yes, because it's winter time, you can't take advantage of your back patio. You have to split birthday parties into 2 weekends to cover the entire family. And then also assuming as maybe some of the families tends to show up a little less over the years and Ollie gets older, then it's going to be friends that come over. And then after those 2 birthdays are done, then you go right into Christmas season. You got to do all that. And it's busy.
It's going to be a busy time for sure. Yep. Well, today, what are we talking about today? Well, we have some community events that I want to give shout outs to. I also want to talk about what is the next upcoming thing we have going on here at Gold Squadron. If you're watching on video, and if you're on our Discord, I'm starting to hype up our next thing, which is right there, which I won't say yet if you're just listening, because I'll tell you when we get there. But our podcast today is brought to you by our amazing patrons who are allowing us to put on the event that we do have coming up here in the new year. So as for community events for shout outs, coming up in February, just a quick shout out to the Cherokee Open. Our good friend Stephen Parker from Dad Gaming was like, hey, I'm helping run this. Would you mind giving a shout out? Absolutely. So that's happening. It is not an official event. It is just for funsies. But I mean, that's why we play X-Wing. So if you're interested in doing that, I believe that's in one of the Carolinas. I am blanking right now. Help me out, somebody. Nope.
What
Anybody?
the Carolinas?
I'm pretty sure it's one of the Carolinas.
It's either going to be north or south.
Cherokee? You say Cherokee?
Cherokee.
I think north.
Panic. Yes, North Carolina. North Carolina.
Hey, I did it.
We did it. The Cherokee Open, North Carolina. And that is happening February 24th to the 26th. So if you're local to the area or want to make a trip out for X-Wing, have a good time. North Carolina, Cherokee, North Carolina. Also, which this is going to be basically getting into our topic for today. Let's start with that. Today we're talking about faction rankings. I put a shout out to everybody on the Discord today. I was like, hey, faction rankings, what are your thoughts? I really think we're in a way too early stage, and I'm calling this right now way too early ranking. So for anybody who wants to tag and be like, you guys were wrong, we are saying this is our best guess today because there's so much content that just dropped over the last how many weeks? We got Ryan, what are all the releases we've had over the last few weeks?
Within a month, we had the Battle of Yavin, the first set of standardized cards from Rebels and Empire. And we had 5 new pilots for every new faction, a la Hotshots Aces 2. And then we had Siege of Coruscant for the Republic and the Separatists that also added all of those standardized cards. That's a lot, actually.
That's a ton of content.
Probably the most amount of new content we've gotten for X-Wing since before COVID, at minimum. If not, maybe even before that, start of 2.0.
And because essentially those are card packs, right? They have to come with a lot of things. It's not just like a single ship that got released and you got we just got to really deal with 5 new pilots. No, there's so many. There's so much stuff. And basically right now we're kind of trying to use a little bit of what we personally feel, what we've seen out there, and how maybe the meta might evolve, which factions might stay strong, continue to evolve here, especially going into 4 big events happening in the next few months. So our next world qualifier, we have the Las Vegas Open that we're going to be at, streaming live there. And then we have the Kyber team series. I know that it's a team event, but the meta does affect the list that end up going into that event. We have, of course, the World Championships happening in March, with who knows if we're getting any content going from January to March. And we have our now newly announced Sector Series, the Gold Squadron Sector Series. Here is just a quick synopsis on what this is. There's going to be 4 sectors. These are essentially when can you play time ranges, saying, hey, if you can play from here to here, sign up for this sector. And this is my kind of answer to attempting to find a balance between predictability and flexibility. This kind of balance. So you have 1 week to play your game. It's a league style type of championship. You can play a different list every week if you want to. You could play the same list every week if you want to. The whole thing for me is about giving people opportunities to play. And again, that balance between flexibility and predictability. Both in one. So super excited about it. We have some prize support that we're putting together now, but you can kind of see the style in which we're going for here. Yeah, super excited about it. Now I'll throw it to Ryan and Marcel. Any questions that come to mind immediately when it comes to the Sector Series?
Well, how much information was given out, I guess, is the because you've answered some of my questions in our
right.
chat. I just don't know how much of that has actually made it out to the public.
Well, I mean, I will be, for the people on the podcast, if you're listening to the show, I'll spill beans here. I'm fine. It's fine. So this is what I said on Discord. I said, number 1, it's free. Okay? Doesn't cost you anything. You just got to sign up. Okay? It's going to be running, second thing, it's going to be running from January through March. Next, you play 1 game a week. We talked about the lists already, and we already talked about how you chose your sector, and we're going to get a top 4 from each sector, which will create our top 16, and we will crown our Sector Series champion. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I was trying to, like I said, I'm hoping that this answers the problem between, like, now I will tell you, we're still going to run into that same predictability problem when we get to the top 16, but at least that's 8 game, like that's 16 people only to deal with rather than everybody.
Oh, I have
We'll
a fun
see.
question.
Yeah.
Does anything that matter in the results of Sector Series influence potential future prize support?
Yes, absolutely. So the champion of each sector, just like we did in the Galactic Championships, will affect whatever the alt art cards are. So there will be Sector Series champion cards. So there'll be a total of 5. So we have the 4 sector winners, and then whoever ends up winning the whole thing.
So if you want a cool alt art card of a new pilot or pilot you've liked for a while, you need to win with it.
That's right.
Incentive.
That's right. And you know, I was looking for. My hope is that this does another thing. This is another way for those for the casual players just to have something to do if they're looking for it, but also our competitive players out there. If you're looking for reps, you know, this is a great place to do it. Like this is going to be a competitive event, and you know, it doesn't lock a weekend Saturday. I know that some people, when I was talking to about it, were like, oh, but the weekends, you just kind of got it all done. I was like, yeah, I understand that. But we're trying it a different way. We're kind of trying to take the best of both worlds, put them together. Should be a good time. All right. So with that, we got a lot of meta-analysis coming forward in the future. We got a lot of lists, and I'm hoping that we can start this whole process by talking just about factions. What I'd like to start with is a very, I'm going to call it a simple question. Marcel, what faction do you believe is the best right now? Do you have a just like, boom, this is the best.
Yes. So I do have a rank in it, and I did my homework today, as you can tell by our document. So there is a ranking, and I think what separates the top, let me say 5. I'm going to say the top 5 is in my ranking. What separates, which is the correct ranking, of course.
Of course.
What separates the top 5 is versatility, and basically how many choices you get. Because in the top 5, I think you get, and actually in all 7, to be fair, you get lists that have the potential to win tournaments. So I don't think there is any faction that does not have the necessary pieces to be able to not only compete, but to compete, make cut, and win tournaments. There's just some that might give you a little bit more variety in how to achieve that victory, or give you more leeway in terms of, oh, I made a mistake, and basically not lose the game because you forgot a trigger, or you set a wrong dial for a turn. So that's, I think, what separates it, which is actually a pretty healthy place to be. But to answer your question, yes, there is a number 1 that I think has the most flexibility, versatility, the most options on going either a large number of ships or small amount of ships, and is very forgiving to making mistakes, which for me is the Empire.
Okay. All right. What are you thinking, Ryan? Just top faction right now. I know.
Empire, swish. To me, it wasn't even to me, that one's like the first thing I was able to figure out. To me, right now,
Right.
Empire's number 1. So many things stand out as being good value, good efficient, and not. I keep trying to separate the idea of the word efficiency. In the past, the way X-Wing players have used it is always to coin term kind of your broad amount of ships maybe spamming a certain chassis type as being the efficiency lists. Well, everything could be efficient as a describing factor, but
Right.
I think there's a lot of things in Empire that stand out. It's like you can get back your points for what you can do, whether it be offensively against the opponent, or objectively to get your points back, contributing to the objective towards winning the game. A lot of it came from the Yavin pack. That was a home run for the Empire, realistically. I think it's going to have a large impact going forward in not only the Empire list building, but also everyone should make sure that you have a plan of some type to going off against some type of Vader and Mauler and Backstabber. The boys. Vader and the boys. You got to be prepared.
Now, what is it about? We'll talk about that Vader specifically. I mean, Vader has shown up in many different ways, right, in the game. What about the Yavin Vader is going to make the impact? Like, why that one?
So that one, not necessarily saying that's going to be the best one. I have no idea what the best one is yet. It could still be a traditional X1 Vader. It could be Defender Vader, like we saw Phil win with it at PAX. But I think Yavin Vader is probably going to be more popular because it gives you more to work with in the list. You can build more list permutations because he's 6 points, not 7 or 9. There's more higher value things you can mix in with that Vader, whether it is Mauler back. So even after putting in Mauler and Backstabber, after 6 for Vader, 7 for those two, you still got 7 points left, which is a sizable amount. You get a 4 point and a 3 point. You get a 5 point and a 2 point. You could just slap down a Morna key and say 7. Whatever.
Yep.
I think it's going to be the most popular because it's cheaper, can fit more stuff, and it realistically is good. Getting Vader Defender's ability on a ship that can also use its force tokens defensively That Vader gets all hits just as commonly as Defender Vader does. It's extremely accurate. Sure, it's very well predicated on the target lock, but there's definitely times where, like, I don't have a lock, but I'll do a 4K or a Talon roll afterburners into something range 1. It's gonna be 3 hits.
Right.
It's really not going to be 3 hits. People, not a lot of things like to see 3 successful results,
Especially off of a ship that can do it consistently, right? It's just you are surprised when Vader doesn't have 3.
Correct. And that Vader, it's not unkillable, but he can very easily make up the 6 points. Like, so if you destroy the 7-point Vader, or definitely the 9-point Defender Vader, much higher chance of winning. It's weird how that 1 extra point gap between the 6 and the 7 makes that Vader not expendable, but less hurtful when he dies in your list. Because you need to have spent all that time trying to kill the Vader, which is a 6 health Vader, 3 shields, 3 hull, with hate. So if you're trying, because you're not going to take him out in one big swing, but the multiple attacks you take at him, some damage that goes through is just the mods he's still just going to keep around with force. Sure, he can't mitigate his blanks. So what? It happens. But then you're ignoring the rest of the list. And the longer you let Mauler and Backstabber live and keep allowing them to shoot with 3-die attacks with what they can do, that's also dangerous. So you can definitely put a lot of things in Empire that can command respect and force you to make difficult target priority decisions.
All right, so we're gonna move on over to our chart where we're keeping track of this. So I'm in the same boat with you guys. I really do think that that the Empire right now is on top for all the reasons you said, and I feel like for the Empire that they have the most number, even going into this current rendition of the meta with all this new stuff. They had the most. It felt like they had the most amount of options to build a list going into it. You got a lot more variety, and lots of, even though it's like a lot of different TIE fighters, but that's still like that's a big deal. On top of, you had the Decimators, which were being successful, as well, the TIE Reapers, and obviously Defenders, X1s, TIE Strikers. Like, there was a lot of variety of Imperial ships that were doing really well.
And just want to make sure that we put a couple ships out there that are standouts. Mm-hmm. One of them is, I believe that they now have the best coordinator in the game, Magna. Squad leader plus, whatever cannon you want on them, usually heavy laser cannon. That's a 3-point coordinator that can also stay focused. And if you just happen to pair it with Iden, then it's going to be there for the majority of the game. It's a bad target to shoot. I'm still a fan of Countdown for all the reasons. And then also you have a TIE Interceptor with 2 Force and 14 loadout. Like, that is insane. Cheaper than Sunterfell. Better than Sunterfell. And cheaper than Sunterfell. It's just insane when you get on it. But then again, everything else that you guys said, it's just no. But I wanted to make sure that we call out that 3-point coordinator. You can't beat it.
Icing on the cake. Now, the other thing that we've done with a lot of our rankings when we talk about different pilots and ships is not only do we give a number 1, number 2, there's also kind of tiers. Can we all say that we would agree that the Empire is S tier? They're going super?
Yes.
All right. And I think for anybody who's maybe unfamiliar with why we do this, it's not just the order that matters, because by the time we get to 7, there have been times historically where that 7th faction is, compared to the top faction, is so bad that you shouldn't take it. But there's also been situations where that 7th faction really overall isn't that far away, from the top. And that's where we try to get this differentiation with the letter ranking as well as 1 through 7. All right. So, Marcel, what is your second place?
My second place is the Galactic Republic.
Galactic Republic. What about you, Ryan?
I don't know if me and Marcel have agreed for this long at a point in time. I also have Galactic Republic in second. Hey, look, there's a lot of force at the top right now. What do you know?
And for myself, right now, I don't have the Republic at second. I have the Rebellion at second, but I will tell you the Galactic Republic's not that far behind. All right, Ryan, why? Why is actually let me give you a different question first. Is it S tier? Is the Galactic Republic on the same tier, on that same level with the Empire?
Not right now. And I don't know if and when it could be. There are pieces that may need to fit the puzzle together correctly. It's got the substance is there, the ingredients are there. It's finding the correct order of operations maybe to get it to S. I don't know if it's going to hit S on as wide scale of an entire faction. I think there's enough stuff within Republic where I'm like, I'm never taking that chassis. Whereas Empire, there's not as much of that to where I'd say A tier. Like, I don't foresee a near future where I take a Republic Y-Wing, a Naboo Starfighter, a Z-95. Yeah, that's kind of where the probably not considering taking almost ever currently territory. Torrent not from Siege of Coruscant. An Arc not from Siege of Coruscant. Very specific pack that helps out this faction a bit.
All right, what about you, Marcel? What grade are you giving the Galactic Republic?
This is a little... I'm very close to an S. I don't think they're an S, but I'm gonna give them an A plus.
A plus.
I'm gonna give them a plus.
I was gonna give you the option of S minus or A plus.
Let me think.
Would you rather go S minus?
S is S. You don't do pluses and minuses.
No, S is just top tier.
All right,
I'm gonna say A plus. I think they're closer to the Empire than what Ryan was saying. I think there are, one of the things they don't have as many ships, they don't have as much variety in what you can put in there, but the number of ways that you can that you can build out, even with the limited number of ships that they have that are viable, still gives you just a ton of different options of how to play the game. You can play the game beefy, you can play the game AC, you can play the game a little bit of mix and match. There's still a lot of options that you can take and still be successful with it. And what I think separates the Republic from everything else right now, including the Empire, what it does better than the Empire other than more force, is the mods, not just from the LAT. You can have all of the mods that the LAT provided and all of the benefits that the LAT provided without actually putting the LAT on there now. With the Siege of Coruscant, with being able to share tokens offensively, you put something like Jag, Wolf, and a couple of these other ships. You can basically build a Siege of Coruscant only list that ignores range 1 attacks at you, or allows your range 3 to be only against the normal mod. Basically, everyone will be double modded because this ship shoots, which means that ship gets a target lock, and that ship gets a target lock. It means this ship gets a target lock, and you don't have to do like funny games like you do with Corrin and the Rebels and stuff like that in order to make that happen. It just happens natively. Wolf shot, and I am at range 2 of them. Okay, I'll take a target lock. And it's just so much, and at 4 points, it's just a lot of different things. And then one of the things that we haven't talked about in the Empire, and now we're talking about synergy, and we're talking about how well they play and how well they shoot and how well they defend. But one of the things that we haven't talked about a lot is how do they play objectives. Mm-hmm. And the Empire has a ton of different ways to play objectives. They have ships that don't care about towing. They have ships that they have medium-based ships or numbers in order to do the
objectives without losing offensive.
Sacrificing.
Yeah, there you go.
And the Republic are in a similar spot, especially with the Hawks now. And with the Hawks and the ability to share. Not the Hawks, I'm sorry, with the Arcs and the ability to share defensive tokens, they're in a similar spot now to be able to still have offensive modifiers, defensive modifiers, take actions, and have big bodies to take up space and do a lot of objective work. And I'm almost talking myself into S tier instead of A plus tier. They're just that close.
All right. So, I agree with everything you're saying in terms of the Republic. My worry for the Republic is that I feel that the floor of the Republic is higher than most factions because of how fragile those ships can be. So the reason why I have the Rebellion here in the second spot is with the Battle of Yavin, they did get a lot of different options, some flexibility to build their squads. But the Rebellion has almost always been known for ships that can survive an initial onslaught and kind of get enough to get the job done. And I look at the Rebellion, and it's not fancy. It's not doing anything. I'm sorry if you're a big Rebel fan. I don't think they do anything special, but I think they're really good at staying alive and delivering enough offense and having enough points to fit enough pieces in to do your objectives. Like I feel like that is a nice balance that they have in their squad, and specifically because they got some cheaper pieces with the Battle of Yavin, which is because I would say if they didn't have the Battle of Yavin cards, I think I would have them and the Resistance right next to each other for the same kind of reasons. It's just now Rebels has some more efficiency pieces with 3 attack dice available. I'm going to put them at A tier, not at S tier. But that's the reason why I don't have the Republic there, is I think less people can be as successful with the Republic as they could do with Rebels. You understand where I'm coming here? Does that make sense? We don't agree with you.
We're shaking our heads.
I only shake my hand because I'm like, I get you. I don't know if I agree with the logic, but
yeah, that's where I am. All right, so let's go ahead. Sorry, Ryan, was there anything else you wanted to say about the Republic?
No, I think we're good. I think Marcel covered a lot of it too, and you as well.
All right, so Ryan, what's your third level piece? Third level faction.
It's really, really muddy here. Resistance.
Resistance.
Yeah. This is not by any means a very strong answer. basically for me, like the rest of the entire game is all like, I don't know, it's all a mush. Mostly because of this actually solid showing they had at PAX. I know it's one event, but I think there's a lot of good play with either YT or T70 Poe. We have a lot of people have been focusing on the 3-point A-Wings, Warby and Merrill. I think there's really good reason to look at the A-Wings that went from 5 to 4. You got Tally, who still can take a proton torpedo at I-5.
Wait, she can take a proton. You said a proton torpedo?
Yeah, she's got a torp slot.
What?
Yeah, no more missile slot. I'm kind of sad about that because I like the Prockets.
I like torps. Prockets are fun too. You got Lulo at 4, who's got 12 loadout, who can take shield upgrade and a couple of talents. That seems good at 4. Like the 4 spotters.
Heroic shield upgrade makes a very tanky Lulo.
You don't take heroic and elusive. Pick one and then pick predator.
Oh no! You keep that Lulo alive.
Then take one of those and take predator. You don't need both elusive and heroic. Get out
That's
here.
why you got MG9 or I'm 9G or whatever. You give them a reroll some other way.
Okay. So the 4 slot in resistance isn't now just Kaz. It's more stuff that matters. We now have a T70 at 4. Zay Versio. That's some value too. It's gaining that back as a filler at 4, but like a T70 at 4. Whether or not being lower than initiative 4 is a good thing right now is questionable. Ray's still there. We know she hits like a truck all the time. Finn didn't change, and he's always a value at 3 points. Being as durable as he is, it takes so many shots to bring him down in a single turn. So that's a lot of stuff your opponent will have to point at to get rid of it off the board. It's usually not worth it. So, and Jarek, the only downers to me is the Y-Wings in general are still kind of I think there's still a bit of a concern. There's not even a 3-point option there. Zori, sure, there's some alpha potential there, but I think there's better delivery systems for an alpha and resistance than Zori. I think Zori just kind of bites it most of the time. So there's a lot of room to play with stuff, and I think there's not a lot of like when I mentioned Empire, I know there's Vader and the boys plus a couple things, whatever you want to mix in. There's Republic where you're like, all right, there's these Jedi and clones, the general list composition of 4, 5 ships, depending on which Jedi you take, which clones you take. With Resistance, here's a lot of these strong pieces that have potential, and there's a lot of ways to put it together. I don't know what's right yet, but a lot of it looks competitively good.
Let's not forget an amazing 5-point ship, which is Finn and BB-8 combined. BB-8 with
the double pod.
Yeah, the double pod is a really good 5 points. You get a lot. They combined, they punch above their weight by a significant amount.
Yeah, that's also a thing to consider. You can't forget that in Resistance, you get a 2-point ship, which helps in list building.
All right, Marcel, what is your third level?
So I was similar to Ryan, like, and oh wait, I want to know Ryan's grade.
Oh yeah, your grade for Resistance.
Oh, B.
Oh, okay. So it jumps an entire tier.
Nope, there's no A tier.
There is
this. It's a whole lot of mud.
All right.
So similar to Ryan, I was like on between Resistance. I don't know what his next one would be, but between the Resistance and the Rebels, they just do so much so similar. However, I'm going to go with the Rebel above the Resistance solely for the purpose of, or solely for the reason, not purpose, solely for the reason of versatility. You know, one of the things that I said early on that I'm grading on is just not only, you know, how can they win. I think all of them can win, but how many different varieties, how many different list varieties or archetype varieties can they win with? I think the Rebels have more with that. Their Alpha Strike is better with Pops, with Corrin, Horn. Of course, you've got Wedge and Luke, and then the Battle of Yavin. Lando is just ridiculous. I mean, that ship is a monster at 7 points.
Han.
What did I say?
Lando.
Lando, yeah, Han.
Just my brain heard Lando. Maybe my ears were wrong.
But yeah, Battle of Yavin, Han. The focus, evade, and coordinate or reroll, and just that's a crazy ship. Then you also get a lot of variety with your 4-pointers. You still get Colby. Colby is a really good notorious carrier in basically a very fast Y-wing very fast X-wing that can focus boost every turn, still shoot 3 dice when it does so. And I think what changed more than anything else is just and what puts, in my opinion, the Rebels above the Resistance is that the A-wings are finally, I think for the first time, well, not for the first time because the A-wings are head and shoulders above the Resistance A-wings. The A-wings that you have now with Tycho, with Ahsoka. I actually don't like Hera, but with Tycho, Ahsoka,
you just broke some hearts there. You just. Ugh.
Well, I mean, Hera, I think Hera's a waste. If you're using Hera, you're wasting. There's better points out there for her.
Right.
But yeah, and then also the new Zoomy Zoom one, the little sidey sloop one. That one is really good. Yeah, that's a really good ship. So there's a lot of variety that you can build. Either Alpha Strike, you can build a little bit of Chunk. One of the ships that was just forgotten about. Actually, wait, even before the ships that you were forgotten about, they got Luke. I mean, Luke Skywalker. That ship is always going to be good, and it's still good. They've got Wedge, even though if you guys see it, and one of the questions that you asked Dion is like what's good in the faction and then what's overrated in the faction. I actually got surprisingly one of my favorite ships, 6-point I6 Wedge. I have that as one of the overrated ones. I would not touch that right now.
I get it. I get it though. It's one of those where it's good at what it does. I think the question is you could probably get more efficiency out of other pieces, right?
Not only can you get more efficiency out of other pieces, I think the new value that you got at I5 from all of the different options from Wes, Corrin, Wes, Corrin. You still have Thane, and there's just a lot of I5 Tycho. There's a lot of I5 options that make that additional point on Wedge, or actually Wedge himself. Battle of Yavin Wedge, that makes paying that extra 1 point for Wedge just not worthwhile. Anyway, a lot of reasons, very close. I'll tell you right now, my ranking between the Resistance and the Rebels is exactly the same. And I'm also putting a B on it.
Also putting a B.
I'm putting it above only because it is more. It provides more variety, at least in my view. But it is not better than the Resistance. It is equal to the Resistance, just with more list archetypes.
All right. Then it looks like I'm coming out of left field then with my third. It feels like it, at least a little bit. But we are getting towards the middle. And my third one is the Separatist Alliance. The Separatists, I think they, if the Separatist Alliance was a person, I think they would constantly have a chip on their shoulder. They're like, why don't you notice me? Am I not good enough for you? Like they have, I feel like they always overperform or tend historically to overperform versus their use in events. Like their cut rate versus what's actually brought to the tournament. Like it doesn't jive. It doesn't match. They're usually overperforming, and that's just because of how good droids can be in the numbers. We got General Grievous and friends essentially is what you end up having, and you're going to end up at least okay in most spots. And I'm going to go ahead and give the Separatists an A ranking. I still think it's matching there right now. But right now the Separatists just have a lot of pieces. Looking at the Siege of Coruscant pilots, I don't think the Tri-Fighters will end up, unfortunately, making it into the regular game successfully. I think they get close. I think people will try, but I think in the end, those vultures, the value of numbers, will a lot of the times make it so that they get pushed out just a little bit. But man, if somebody can figure out how to make at least maybe one Tri-Fighter in a list be successful, I'd love to see it because they are super fun to fly. I will tell you that.
Why you try again.
That's right. We just don't have the answer yet. Don't have the answer.
Oh, it's the pick the ones that are I-5.
That's the answer. Go. All right. Now we've gotten into the next kind of rung. This is the middle faction. Now, mind you, I'm still holding on to the A tier. You guys have already gone down to B. And I'll go first this time because I haven't gone first yet. And I'm going to go ahead, and this is where I'm going to go ahead and grab the Resistance. And the Resistance is here for a lot of the same reasons I said. The Rebels were really good. I just personally think that the Rebels do it better. Now, part of my bias is that right now I am not as familiar with the newer Resistance pieces. I haven't had a chance to really see them on the table, see how they're performing. I'm excited to see what the possibilities are. The A-Wings coming down in price means that they could perform. But I still think that this is I might when you guys get to the end of the list, you might think that I'm copping out on my list. I still think this is an A tier. I feel like there's this Empire, and then there's this is all really good, and I'm gonna end up with a single B tier, only one at the end, and without a C and without a D. Previews there.
You know, there's a lot more letters in the alphabet, right?
There's so many. There's so many letters, and I refuse to use them.
There's 4 in your name alone. Come on.
But yeah, for all the reasons that you guys already said, the Resistance does have more options now. I just think that those 3 are better right now. All right, Marcel, your go. What's next on your list?
Well, I already gave it. It's the Resistance, and that is also a B. And I just happen to think the Resistance is just kind of goes almost blow for blow with the Rebel. Slightly a little bit less, but then you have a couple outliers that bring them above. I think the Rebels have more variety, but then when you get into Rey itself, the Rey ship just is just so ridiculously good. Poe in the YT 1300 is actually it's a better ship than I thought it would be. I've used it a couple times. I wasn't sold on it on paper, but when I put it on the board, just being able to ignore rocks, being able to just do a lot of different things, it stays alive very long, and it puts out a decent amount of damage, especially with Rey Gunner. And I think that's another thing that whether you're either you're using Rey ship or Rey Gunner in your list, the Rey is just amazing. Another I already mentioned the Finn BB-8 combo. Ryan already talked about Lulo, Zay Versio, and just some of the other salad options that options to do like salads. I think the Y-Wings suck. uh, it's so funny how they went from, carrying the faction to they suck now. But
I think that little.
The middle ground means we just need at least one 3-point Y-wing that's allowed to exist.
something,
okay?
yeah. Because there's not a single Y-wing that I would put in my squad right now.
I've only considered Lega with barrage rockets, wartime, and marksmanship, but that was before Lulo, Tally, and Zay were all 4 points as well.
Yeah. And then I think another ship that I don't know if it's overrated because I don't think anybody would use it. It has an amazing ability. It's just 1 point too high, which is the YT Lando. If it was a 7-pointer, I think it wouldn't be overpowered at 7 points. It would still be a viable ship to take. At 8 points, it's just it suffers from the Scum Maul effect. Maul at 9, garbage. Maul at 8, I'll fly it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's neck and neck. So I'm giving it a B.
I 100% agree with the Lando talk with it being 8. It's 1 point too much. It's the same cost as Rey. Rey's going to get her points back
Every day.
Well, not every day. It can happen.
Most days. I mean, when you go with Lando versus Rey, Rey's more consistently going to get it.
Obviously, people will say then, hey, Lando's meant to also help other people. Okay. But I can almost say Lando's likely to die every game. Mm-hmm. This isn't a Rebel Falcon. This is a Resistance Falcon. It's generally cheaper and not as good for a reason. Stat line, some of the actions are red that used to be white. Doesn't have 2 extra shields. Not as good of a dial. So I'm not there to just give my opponent 8 points if my alpha or whatever I put together doesn't follow through.
Mm-hmm. So what is your 4th ranked faction, Ryan?
Back to my notes. This is where I put the Separatists. My 4 rank. I think they have a lot of strong, obviously strong pieces. Grievous for 5 points, extreme value. Django's still at 8. Notorious a little more expensive now, so his loadout's a little changed depending on what you want, but you can get most of what you want on that ship. I think Dirge is pretty good. I-5 with those focus repositions or even evade repositions. Dead to rights at I-5 is scary. You put something in bullseye, it cannot spend green tokens defensively. Doesn't mean you can't spend, stuff can still spend force, not a big deal. Mm-hmm. But Dirge only being at 4 points, right? If you just take HLC Ion Cannon, say, this is my 4-point I-5 ship that you don't want to be the bullseye at all. Super scary. And has the chance to come back from the dead with his ability. 13 out of the 33 damage deck cards will proc from his ability, which when you would die, you would spend his 1 charge that he has. He can only use it once. You flip up all your damage cards, and any of them that are pilot or direct hit get discarded, and you flip them all face down, and if he's doesn't have as much damage cards as his health, he's still alive. So if you got damage card chucking not only on Impervium Plating from Grievous, but also Dirge, and then you have something like Dooku at now I-5 SOC around, those are all pretty... their health is not immediate means to this is going to die in X amount of turns. There's some play into whether it's damage card discarding between Grievous and Dirge, or Dooku with his ability messing with stuff. More likely offensively, he's like the Yavin Vader, except you probably expect Dooku to die. But what Empire doesn't have that Separatist does is Grievous who's on the flank and ridiculously scary in that position. So if you focus that hard on Dooku or a fire spray, whether it's Jango too, you got Grievous who's going to eat you up on the flank. So there's a lot of things that, similar to Empire, garner your attention. It's not as deep of a faction. I actually think now that there's so many 4-point things that are valuable in Separatists, being Dirge, Volan Das Tri-Fighter, the Flak Tri-Fighters, I rarely put Vultures in my list now. I'd rather have those 4-point ships than Vultures. Because it used to be when you left with 4, it's like, well, I'm taking 2 Vultures. Because the 4-point slots for Separatists were terrible. Right. Now, you have some seriously good options at 4 points. And I think that actually opens up a lot of archetypes in the Separatist faction that weren't there before. Usually it was, here's a lot of dudes with maybe 1 or 2 like named or more important characters, or here's about 4-ish important characters or 3-ish important characters and 1 little droid because I'm a filler,
right?
We never had that middle ground, like 5 ship, everyone has some close to amount of value with each other. Usually it was a top end and a low end mixed together. So I think it's hard to quantify how much this increases Separatists' chances in being highly competitive. I know you mentioned, Dion, they've always been on a high win rate by comparison to their popularity. They're just not a popular faction. People who play them are seasoned with them.
Yeah.
But as the faction is itself, with the tools that are there, you give those same people more tools.
I know when
more success.
When I see somebody set down Separatists across from me, I go, this person's practiced more than I have. Is the very first thing that I think.
And they are B tier.
All right. Yep. You took the question right out. There it is. All right. B tier. Marcel, where are we going next? What is your 5th rank faction?
Oh, God, now we're starting to count. You didn't tell me there was going to be math in this.
Oh, yeah, this is where the fun begins.
I think this is where I'm going to... I mean, I think we've already started to separate here, but I think this is where we're truly going to separate. I actually have Scum number 5.
What? Okay.
Yeah, so that means Separatists and First Order are further down.
All right.
Why? Yeah, so I have Scum, but there's a big
why
here. It is there because Kanan exists.
Fair.
That is why it's there. It's better
That's
than
pretty fair.
Here, I can fix it. Give me 1 second. I'll fix it.
Yeah, it is better than First Order. It is better than Separatists because it has Kanan. And it has also what's the other one? Gamut Key with Gleb, and it has Boba Fett. But Boba Fett cannot do it alone.
I fixed it. I fixed it.
That's basically it. That's why it is there. You make Kanan not the same. You don't even have to change her ability. You just reduce the loadout so she doesn't have Maul anymore or a way to regen the Force. And this faction drops down to a C in a heartbeat. Maybe even a C- or D. I mean, it's really the faction itself has 0 variety. It just I'm trying to think how many different ways can you load out successful Scum squads right now, and without. If you're not using Kanan in your squad, whatever, you don't even have to have heavy hitters. You can be doing. Personally, I've been flying. I was telling Ryan during the show. I've been flying Bosk, Doctor She. They told me not to say Dr. He because I get in trouble. So Dr. Afra, Bosk, Kanan, and Gamut Key. And without either of those 2 Hawks, that's just garbage. But that's a 7-pointer and a 6-pointer. There's so many things that you can do with those 7 and 6 points. Whether it's go up to Bosk and then lower it down to a 5-point support ship, or Go with one of the fire sprays. Go with one of the gauntlets. Mix and match different ones. You got Q90. There's a lot of options that you can throw on there to make a very viable list. Gauntlet with little commandos rolling around. But all of it begins and ends with the Hawk. No Hawk, no faction. And I'll give it, again, it's a B only. It's a B only because, actually a B minus. I will make it minus.
B minus.
It is,
all right.
Yeah, it is not Rebel and Resistance. It is a B minus, but it's still, the Hawk will still win tournaments. There will be major tournaments won by Hawks. And now, and people will say, "Oh, not Bosk. Oh, Boba Fett won." No, Kanan won.
on the arms of Kanan, right?
Kanan, take the wheel.
Telling you. All right, so for myself, the next level down is what for a long time was on top, and that for me is the First Order. First Order still very good. It's still a take 5 pieces, almost any 5, and you're going to be fine. A lot of the times. I think the biggest thing that has dropped it down is the fact that you can't do the same exact bomber shenanigans as you did previously with the current points changes and loadout changes. I really do think that those bombers really did have a meta warping effect because of how good they were, because you had 2 of them as well. You could still have 1 that does most of the job, but being able to go down to 1 means you have space for another piece that can deliver. I think out of all the factions, when it comes to objective scenario like balance, I think First Order is the most balanced out of all of them, where you can assign almost any piece to be like, all right, your job is going to be to go get the objectives because it makes sense right now, and a lot of times you can still recover depending on the list. But I'm not going to be surprised if we see still the First Order do really, really well and be consistent. You still have people are getting better at flying TIE Whispers that are not named Kylo Ren. You're starting to see Whirlwind show up a little bit. Of course, Kylo is still good, and the TIE FO fighters are great. I think one thing that will hurt though is that a lot of players who I'm going off of now, not just playing wise, but like a lot of people who like the Empire just because of fluff usually like the First Order because they're in lineage with each other. So you might have a lot of players jump ship off of First Order to get to the Empire because they not the exact same play style, but a very similar play style. But I still think it's A tier. I know. I'm grading on a curve? Question mark. What about you, Ryan?
I don't know. That's not much of a curve. That looks more like you're grading on a plank.
True. Ryan?
So next, I also have the First Order. I think you kind of hit it very well with, besides the last, I'll say, season. Mm-hmm. The First Order has probably been the most balanced faction. They've always kind of just been in the middle. They've had some good top end lists, but a lot of their pieces had value to use. Like, there are plenty. Like, there's at least 3 pilots on the silencer chassis I'd want to consider flying. There's at least 3 whisper chassis. There's plenty of the TIE FO. There's a couple of the TIE SF. There's 1 or 2 in the TIE BA. But I can look at all chassis and give you a reason that I would take them potentially. Some maybe a little more than others, but there's nothing where I would say, if I go to this and I say, I could find a pilot, I could take any chassis in this entire faction. But they're not that high on the top end. So they're kind of, people equate the jack of all trades or the middle ground. They can do a lot of stuff well. They don't do anything great. or extraordinary. I mean, I will say Kylo is still very extraordinary in the Silencer. That's for sure. Extreme Maneuvers is still insane on him. That's why he's 7 points, though. But the Hot Shots and Aces pack definitely gave First Order a lot of tools of extra things. Here's Scorch 2 in DT. Here's Gaelic and I5 TIFO, who can take an ion cannon. So it just gets a 3 dice attack, but also has a pseudo, here's a discipline type of squad leader effect to coordinate friends when other friends die. But we know how good discipline has been in the past. People are starting to see a little more what Hopeful can do on the Yavin X-Wings and Y-Wings to a degree, mostly X-Wings. We know Kylo Whisper had been picked up, and the Zai shuttle, people are, you know, to some degree have either calmed down a little bit or still fearing tyranny. It's out there. It's a thing. You need to be aware of what it does, but I think you could still beat it. It's fine. And you're right. I think it's predominantly a 5-ship faction. I don't think there's a lot of 4 ships that I like in it. And I guess it can make some 6s with bringing a lot of TIFOs with predominantly 3 dice attacks, but I think it lands in the 5 territory. But it makes so many variations of 5. It's crazy. So I have them at 1, 2, 3, 5. We're at 5, right?
Yep.
B as well.
All right. Well, Ryan, I'll go ahead and give you the first crack at your next one as well.
Doubling up.
Double.
6 is the Rebel Alliance. Now, I have put the Rebels the lowest. So, yes, they have a lot more new pilots and potential tools to use. Like Marcel mentioned, more variety in that aspect. But I think they still don't have variety in what they actually do, which is predominantly joust, just in different ways. Which X-Wing, which value of X-Wing, what ability does it have? It's still an X-Wing, it still goes generally at your opponent. It's only flanking if your opponent wants to look at a different X-Wing somewhere else on the board. The A-Wings, yes, they have some speed. Tycho can flank, but he doesn't need to do what he can do right now. Just provide double modded attacks by utilizing composure with his ability. The Rebels do have a lot of good 3-point options. None of them really add to the damage race, though. It's all utility. You got Ezra in the tie with K2SO. You got Kraken, who can give you some more information on actions in the engagement phase. You have Keo, who's a valuable A-Wing that has weird maneuvering but can get in really good spots for objectives or even just positioning for using concussion missiles. I feel like I missed... Oh, yeah, Arvel, Derek, other A-Wings too. And they have some other good 4-point options now, but I think what they lack is that feature piece, the real anchor of the whole faction to say, like, they don't have a 7B Anakin, they don't have a Kylo Silencer, they don't have a Vader to say, here's my top end piece that I can rely on every game to accomplish X things, or survive X amount of turns, or do X amount of damage. That's where I kind of fall back on the Rebels a bit, and this is why they're lower. They don't have the superstar that the other factions do to reliably accomplish what a 7-point, a 6-point. I don't think there's many 8 points that people could. Oh, Rey, sure. Some 8 points that all the other factions rely on to a degree. Not that all the other factions have to take those ships, but they are highly valued for a reason. The closest thing to a highly valued ship in Rebel to me is Luke at 6. It was good. He's going to kill stuff and do some damage pretty well. But he can still die pretty easily.
Fly.
I'm sorry, easier
Fly-
than most other 6s that are in high contention right now. Not easily.
I was gonna say fly the Battle of Yavin Han a couple times, and see if you have that same opinion.
I actually think that is a much worse ship than you give it credit for. But I haven't played as much, but I've outsourced that playtime to other people who have more time than I do right now. I don't believe... My problem with that Han is...
It doesn't seem as consistent.
He doesn't do anything extraordinary. His ability is requiring you to do damage to stuff when, if you're trying to do damage to particular targets, he's shooting first, which is kind of a detriment when everything's tokened up at that point. I just think there are better ways to engineer what are the special tricks he can do with other pieces in the faction, such as Kraken, right? For 3 points, you can get an engagement coordinate, essentially. And I just think the rebel identity of, I'm going to kill you fast with jousting and some sort of potential alpha, maybe be a little bit more health point durable, less agility durable. But I think just other factions do that better because they don't have that feature superstar.
Fair. And what grade are you going to get?
I still think they're a B.
Still, all that, he's still going to be. Still going to be.
Yeah. I only brought up a lot more of the negatives because you guys already went over the Rebels and they're positives. I wanted to more talk about why they're lower for me, but I still think they're in this mud of B tier.
Right.
Because I still think they got pieces that they can win stuff. A lot of these factions can still win events. I don't think there's any faction that can't right now. It's just how much of the faction can contribute to being a competitive list. Or, in the Rebels' case, can they find those pieces to bring together?
We don't know. We'll have to find out. What will the future hold? One thing that the future does hold on my list is the Republic. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. Again, my biggest thing with the Republic is I know my ranking here comes from, I understand that they can be, honestly, probably the best. They can be on par with Empire. But what I have seen is a bit of a gap in play with the Republic. There are the players who understand that a lot of the times the Republic, like, you got to know when to not just joust people with your Eta 2s. And you know what I'm saying though, right? There are people who are like, I don't understand why I lost. These Eta 2s are terrible, right? But it's like
to their defense, they haven't had the Coruscant Eta 2s for that long.
Truth. Which maybe they will make the difference. Maybe that will end up being the difference. But like my ranking here has nothing to do with where the ceiling is for the Republic. It's more where the floor is, and I think the floor can be very low because I think you need to bring the Jedi. I do think you need to bring at least 2, and if you don't utilize them well while they're on the field and you end up with like just the Hawk at the end of the game, you're likely going to lose. Right, so that's my thing is I think they are a harder faction to play. So I think their overall ranking by the time we get to something like Worlds may end up being lower. But at the same time, in the same breath, I will say that the Republic could end up winning everything. They have the capability and tools to do that. And that's why it's also in A tier.
This feels like such a cop-out.
It's not a cop-out.
Empire is good. Everything else is just the same.
I didn't say it's bad. It's A.
I mean, I wasn't far off different from, like, here's Empire than everyone else, but I think Republic deserved to be A. I almost did S B B B B B B B B B B.
All right.
All right.
Well, Marcel, you're next here on the sixth level here.
Yeah, and this is and my last two are also kind of swap around a little bit, but I'm gonna go with the First Order. I originally was gonna think Separatist, but yeah, I mean the First Order just has more tools. The FOs, specifically the three FOs, being the I-5 one. What is it, Maurus and Scorch and Scorch Light. They're just really good. It's a really solid 9 points, or is it 9? 3. Yeah, I think 9 points. Yeah, it's a really solid 9 points. You still have quick draw. Can't forget about quick draw, and especially quick draw with is it Phasma, the one that gives the damage out? That combo's has seen a lot of success. You still have the bombers available. One bomber that's still plenty enough to get your electroshaft missiles where they need to be. And then the whispers, or even the whisper spam, like five whispers with 5 proton rocket whispers. They're still actually pretty solid. You have 5 jamming ships that are going to throw 5 dice at you at some point, and are not easy to kill, especially if you're unmodded, because you're jammed all over the place. And this is very hard for me, gentlemen. I hope you understand this. This is very, very difficult for me.
I'm sorry.
My existence.
Yes.
But I am going to take that and slide it up above the Scum.
Oh my goodness! So you're having a change of heart. You talked yourself out of it.
Well, you guys kind of, more than me talked myself out of it. You guys talked me into it more than.
We were convincing.
Hey.
Without even knowing it.
So I will put them as a B. That's why I'm moving them up over the Scum. Just a general B instead of a B minus. Because they do have. I was a little hard on them. I was looking at my notes, and I was like, I have way more positives than negatives. I mean, they have a lot of nice things that they can do, and they can't compete with the Rebels and the Resistance. In punchiness, or in just general value for the points that you spend, especially with the TIFOs. That shield on those TIFOs is, I mean, it's gold. That's a difference maker right there. Yeah, so I'm gonna bump them up, and the Kanan faction is going to go down to 6.
All right. Well, Marcel, I'll let you go ahead, go back to back here. So that means that your bottom tier will end up being Separatists.
That is correct. And I mean, I get you can throw there's some variety. You could throw a bunch of droids on there. Isophane's probably gonna be a little upset at this, and like what?
You're gonna call you out tomorrow. You know he is.
Yeah, he's he wants something with it, and Django's still amazing. General Grievous is still amazing. Dirge is pretty darn good. And all the droids and like the Discord missiles. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with them. Even the Gauntlet is pretty good. I think the new, what is it called? The new Maul. Is it Maul? No, the new Count Dooku.
Okay, yeah.
Is a hot pile of F. Yeah,
Fudge.
He's junk tier. No, junk tier. And I'm not a big fan of the Siege of Coruscant struts. I think you give up a lot by not having independent calculations, plus not having the ability to park yourself on a rock. You can ignore rocks. They become kind of like the scum ties, instead of what really separates them being able to park on rocks. I think that hurts them a lot.
Well, the big difference too is you actually have to move all the way through the obstacles,
In
not
order
just
to get
rocks,
the action,
cloud, debris, and rocks. But you actually have to end your move
on the other
fully
end.
past them for it to allow you to continue doing.
It's a different way of moving compared to what they used to.
It's a worse way of moving. Significantly worse.
Fair.
Being able to park there and saying, like, this is going to be my spot. I'm going to be shooting and I'm going to be doing all the fun stuff. And now, mind you, they still have all of those ships that were able to do that available to them. I'm just saying that the Siege of Coruscant, when it comes to droids, did not bring a whole lot of value. But you still carry that same value from the ships that Isofane won with, recently. So it's so I'm going to put this one as well as a B-. It'll be, it's kind of, it's not bad enough to call it a C. It's still in that can win tournaments. It's not that far off of. I'm trying to think. I'm really. Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to figure out if I can put it in a C, but it's just. It's got enough toys to not be a C, so I'm going to keep that at B-. So, and I think that there's a lot of distinction. So the Empire #1, Republic very close, very very close second. Rebel Resistance First Order, that's right here in the middle, and then Scum and Separatist at the bottom. Oh baby.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead while Elara, who I got past here, is quiet. I'm gonna give my bottom one. My bottom one, same as Ryan's, gonna end up being Scum. Now, the reason is, this is of course in opposition of Cam Murray just destroying everybody with essentially Kanan, Boba. Plus other thing lately, the latest flavor being Rook Cast in the Gauntlet. But for me, when it comes to, one second, Ryan, continue. Why is Scum in the bottom for you?
So yeah, I assume Dion's kind of alluding to is we have one known quantity in Scum. It's Kanan Hawk with Boba plus Thing. And that Thing being Kashka Frost or Rook Cast is more of the commonality right now as being the main top list, which can perform really well, as shown by Cam Murray and a few others in events, both in the prior points and these points. I think the issue is after that you go, what now?
Right. It's a what else? What? Somebody put it in the chat earlier. A faction is currently really sitting on one piece, but the problem is it doesn't really feel like a faction anymore. That's why, like my grade.
It's a list.
Right. My grade for Scum is BS. Okay, that's for two reasons. B is because I think the rest of the faction just kind of sits below everything else, and S, realizing that that they have S pieces, they can make an S tier list. An S tier list. There it is. That's my ranking.
That can be interpreted a very different way.
Listen. I didn't say
Kanan is full of BS. I'll say.
Mine was intentional. I don't have to point out the joke. I don't got to explain the joke.
So on the flip side, though, in terms of like stuff that maybe could be things that are featured in lists for Scum in the future, you have 4-point Fang back. Sure, it's I3. It could shoot twice, maybe. It's a real ability. shooting more than once. I mean, we saw what that. I mean, granted, it was an I-5 ship, but Ubel, Flight Leader Ubel, showing up at PAX in the Empire, shooting twice, once at I-5, which is when it engages, and whenever else it wants to trigger its ability. For fun is granted I-3. 4 costs, not 5, is a Fang, but also is a little more difficult to trigger. Granted, you are lower initiative, so you're more likely to do finishing blows with your lower initiative ships sometimes. I think Boss kind of took a back seat in the last season. This one, there's a lot of valuable 4 health ships flying around. I really don't want 1 damage turning into 2. A la the TIE fighters who are featured with 4 hull, your A-Wings that are starting to be more predominant with RZ2s or RZ1s. So maybe Boss makes him another play. He's really hard to kill in 1 round. A lot of things are vying on their ability to initiative kill. And you can shoot twice because you have Zam Crew probably, which is... But I think without seeing more Scum lists that have actually brought it together, made something that can show up and win events or highly place and or on a consistent manner, which obviously we'll see as time will tell. I don't know if I believe in anything in Scum other than Boba, Kanan, Thing. It's a list faction. But because that list is so good, still a B tier.
Yep. And there we go. So that's our final rankings here. Now, of course, anytime I post something in our Discord, I'm like, hey, give me your opinion. There's always somebody who's like, but what's the criteria? And while I get it, I mean, essentially anybody, we're just guessing. In the end, we're just guessing, right? And we're giving it's kind of a gun to your head moment. It's like, choose now a ranking. It's hard. It's hard, which is why, I mean, you could see, obviously mine, I got 5 out of the 7 in the middle. But I will say that, honestly, when it comes to, somebody were to ask me, you know, to place a bet on what faction ends up making final, what 2 factions make final table at World, is really hard to answer that question, because there are pieces in all of them, and we have a lot of unknowns going into the upcoming season. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what ends up shaking out through Kyber Team and the Sector series and any in-person events that end up happening, because that meta, especially the online metas, tend to evolve pretty quickly and react to each other, because normally those are the people who are the most engaged, and we kind of see those reactions show up a little bit later in person. But I mean, I'm gonna throw out the question anyway. You know, we all put Empire at S. We're gonna here we go. I'll ask this 3 separate questions that are very related. Give me 1 faction that will be on final table for the World Championships. Is it Empire? Is Empire just you're calling Republic? I can't argue with you. I said that the floor is really low, but the ceiling can be quite high when somebody plays it well, right? And I don't know. I don't even know how to answer my own question.
I'm gonna say, along with Empire being likely the strongest faction, it's also one of the most popular factions. So by sheer numbers alone, its odds of being at the final table are pretty high. I think the easy way out on that one.
Yeah, and same here. Like I think most likely Empire makes an impact, but I feel, man, there has been so many years where what we thought was the top thing going into it ends up doing well in the tournament, but doesn't end up winning it. There's a flavor, a twist that ends up happening.
Yeah, if nothing else gets released and there's no more point changes, I think the people that are considering Republic, or the people that are flying Empire, or knowing that Empire is going to be out there in mass, are going to build to kind of take on it. Because you can either build. I agree that Empire is going to be the most saturated, because it is the most saturated. It's going to be the most explored, and it's going to be the most solved. You can say.
Well, that's a good word. That's a good word. I like that.
It'll have the more people will fly, so all the good stuff will come, rise to the top and be noticeable, and people who want to stand out and just not be I'm going to fly the exact same thing, I'm just going to fly it better than you, will find some outlier to be able to kind of beat that and also compete against the rest of the field. And I think that's the Republic has that upside more than any other faction.
Fair.
I will say, even though you liked using the word solved, or at least you liked what Marcel's using of it, I personally don't think anything will be near solved by Worlds, because we just got all this new stuff. We just got some minor points adjustments to like the RZ2s, and we have 3.5 months. That's it. We have only LVO, and I guess count packs too, but that was like literally weekend of release, so big chaos. Who knows? Throw things up. But
just to be clear, solved is not an end state. It's relative to everything else. So
it's going to be a more developed
than all the other ones. Like you will know.
I think that's
farther loaded.
I think it's very tip of the iceberg in whatever this meta is going to be. Like what happens at Worlds is not going to be a dictator of a culmination of stuff. It's more going to be a starting point, to be honest, because we're in the prologue right now. We're going to hit like call to action at Worlds, basically, in the story of this.
Yeah, I mean, because even, there's... I'm thinking, I'm not too familiar with the European schedule, but in the United States, we have the Las Vegas Open, and do you know of any other World qualifiers happening after the Las Vegas Open?
I'm just opening up the AMG page right now of the year events. So if you just search for Atomic Mass Games events, it was actually the first link. So good job, Google. Good job, AMG. LVO. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. So because it goes from Poland's X-Wing event that was during Thanksgiving weekend to skips all of December into the end of January with Las Vegas Open. Now, maybe something gets added a little bit later to their list of actual qualifiers. I mean, we've seen it happen. They've added stuff. I mean, events have been probably set up for more than the amount of time that they were labeled qualifiers.
Right.
So you could have something that an event was a year planned in advance, but it just got named a qualifier a month or two prior. So that could still happen, but the closer we get to Worlds, the less likely it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the end of January seems, I'm just thinking like business-wise for like getting flights and all that for the winners, seems to make sense to be a cutoff. But yeah, I mean, Las Vegas Open being called a World qualifier late, really as of the last couple weeks, that being rubber stamped. So I'm excited to see what ends up coming of it all. And I think the interesting thing as well is, over the last couple years, we've talked a lot about online X-Wing, but competitively, you still really do have this divide of there are people who pay attention to all X-Wing that exists. There are people who play only, in their store, and they don't pay attention to online things. They don't look at the podcast. They don't look at MetaWing, and they still show up and play well. You know, that factor, I think, is going to end up helping the Wild West feel that I think Worlds will end up being. I think Las Vegas will give a slight it's going to influence the meta, you know, just a bit, but being still 2 months out means that there's enough time for evolution, and I really think for people who pay attention to online play, the Kyber Team series and the Sector series are going to be two things that a lot of people have their eyes on. As to what could end up being good, even though, you know, Kyber this year is a team event, there's still a lot of information to be gained there. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what ends up coming of everything.
I guess to slightly expand a bit on what Dion means by like why it really separates a team event versus a normal event. Because in team events, there's generally a pairing format system, and your list building can be highly influenced by that.
Yep.
You can take lists that normally may have to deal with a hard counter in Swiss that you don't have to worry about as much anymore, because you can set up your pairings to try and make sure that doesn't happen against your opponents. Now, it's only teams of 3, so you don't have a deep roster to work with, potentially. I guess I haven't fully looked at the list building and faction bringing rules of the teams of 3, but that type of format definitely influences how you build your list and what you can and can't bring when you consider versus a regular complete Swiss when you're just bringing a single list for yourself.
All right. Well, with that, I mean, that's our topic for today. We have our final rankings. Dion, set it out. We got Republic, Rebels, Separatists, Resistance, First Order, Republic, and then Scum. Marcel, give me your final ranking.
So we've got Empire, Republic, Rebel, Resistance, First Order, Scum, and Separatist.
Right?
And for me, you have Empire, Republic, Resistance, Separatist, First Order, Rebel, and Scum.
And before we go, I want to leave us with one question. We stayed within a 3-letter range for our rankings when it came to the grades. Is X-Wing currently balanced?
It depends on how you define balanced.
And that's the discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's balanced in that every faction has a potential to win, especially because there are multiple ways of winning, where a faction that may not be as good at jousting or dogfighting may have an alternative route to victory in some of those matches. So yes, in that regard, there is more balance. Only there's more balance because there's more noise, I would say. But there's still a deep separation of like just ships being good, and you can tell like night and day which ships are good in the old way of thinking, especially. But there's the yeah. Anyway, that it's a big conversation, but that's my view of it.
Ryan?
Good whole bunch of, I don't know, man. It's too early. Like, to be real, as I mentioned, it's definitely, to me, way too early to tell. Is it balanced to only have, so if we're just looking at the context of how we feel,
right,
tiers right now, is it balanced that one faction is seemingly, you know, depending on how you feel your separation from A to S tier is, heads and tails above most of the others? I don't know, maybe? Does it feel right if a majority of the whole game's factions are on the same playing field, but that playing field, depending on how far away B and S and A is from each other, like, you know, the separation of the tiers may determine really how fair or balanced it feels.
I will say that there is a list in each faction that can compete and beat whatever the best S, at least that we've seen or that I've seen, the best S tier or the best Empire list. There is a list in every faction that can compete and beat the best Empire list, especially once you start throwing into the mix the, you know, which objective gets rolled as in the matchup.
That's a good point. It's that definition of what will the what do you define as being balanced? And I would agree, Marcel. Right now there is a list in every faction that that can be played and that you need to be scared of. You need to think about at least a little bit going into a tournament. Well, my friends, we are going to go ahead and call it for the night. My goal for this week is I'm hoping that I can get in a couple of games this week to be able to. I want to talk a little bit more specifics when it comes to some of the new pilots. Do some exploring there, maybe build some lists, and we will see you next week as we head into the next. Let's see, when we come, it'll be the 19th. We'll be about a week and a half before Christmas. Good stuff. All right. Any shout outs or anything, Marcel, Ryan, before we head out?
No, just hope everyone's having a good time, staying healthy, staying warm if you're somewhere that's not warm, staying cool if you're somewhere that's hot.
Right?
Nothing particular. I echo Marcel's sentiments.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Be smart. Be safe. Stay warm if you're in a cold climate. And if you're in a warm climate, that's cool. Go Squadron.